Hello, everybody. My name is Drake Rhodes, and today I came here to talk to you guys about my case analysis that I have been researching or analyzing in my organizational communication class. Um, so basically, for my case analysis, I basically chose to do mine over the television show The Office. The reason I chose The Office is because The Office is, it's a comedy. It's a funny show. And it also is related to business. It's about a paper company called Dunder Mifflin. They're based out of Scranton. And there's many times in the show where a lot of the problems that happen or occur are exaggerated. But like I said, many of them are realistic and they could really happen. And I feel like it's very fitting for this class and for, just the general knowledge of organizational communication. So, the specific example I chose from this show is the early episode, one of the earlier seasons. It was called Diversity Day, and to give you a rundown on what this episode was, it was all about diversity. Excuse me. It was all about diversity. So Michael Scott, played by Steve Carell, he basically has been having many people reporting him for being, somewhat racist, derogative. I mean, just not being a good leader and being more racist, being more almost like too direct for people. And he's, it shows in the show, and it's kind of funny in some instances, and then in some ways it makes very awkward scenes. That's kind of, the whole part that makes the show kind of funny. So yeah, but in this episode, Mr. Brown, who's an exec for Dunder Mifflin, gets sent to Scranton from the headquarters to basically give a collaborative, group talk, basically to explain how diversity needs to be implemented in this branch of Dunder Mifflin and how they're going to benefit all together. And that ultimately it's going to make them a better workplace and a better culture and a better, more successful part of their company. Well, eventually the word gets spread out that really this whole situation with Mr. Brown coming down was really just for Michael, and that it was really just a lesson for Michael to learn about diversity, and everyone else was cool, but Mr. Brown didn't want to embarrass Michael since it was, Michael's, branch to help run. So this basically ultimately led to Michael revolting against Mr. Brown, creating a video that was pretty much just as racist and just as straightforward and just as, everything that shouldn't have been, as it just explained his past perfectly. And there's also another instance in the show, in that episode, where he talks to Oscar, which is one of the Spanish people who work there, and he's a big part of the show, and he has a very very upfront conversation with him that is debatable. And so I'm going to get into that a little bit and talk about some of the problems I saw with some of the topics that were related to the class. So that was basically ultimately what I analyzed. So first I have the anticipatory socialization. The anticipatory socialization was defined by Wikipedia as the process facilitated by social interactions in which non-group members learn to take on the values and standards of groups that they aspire to join, so as to ease their entry into the group and help them interact competently once they have been accepted by it. Michael Scott disrupted this process dramatically, obviously, because he did not let anyone take values or standards of the group. He didn't try to help them interact. He was trying to, cause horrible interactions that were awkward and, just too upfront. And this behavior, I really feel, can hinder the workplace, and it's something that should be fixed. Moving on, to the interview process, which I feel is also another very important role and part of this episode. And this relates to Oscar. So like I said, after the video fails, she starts to begin talking and interviewing Oscar, which caused, Oscar to become very frustrated and, started to feel victimized. He started to feel as if, he was getting cornered and, feeling backed into, the conversation. And this is important to bring up because I feel that Michael, through this, generated interrogative pressure. According to my sources, McGrady and Baxter, interrogative pressure is any influence applied to interviewees during an interrogation, which may interfere with their attempts to accurately recall an event. And that's kind of important. It's not really them recalling an event, but it's him kind of just trying to recall facts in his head, with this type of pressure on him, where it's kind of like he's interrogating him, because in this part of the episode, he's asking questions like, how do you feel to be Spanish? Do you feel victimized? And, it's kind of hard for him to answer and recall what he wants to say and gather his thoughts. And then lastly, I want to talk about the leader-member exchange. So according to Lloyd, Bower, and Vopel, Effective leadership processes occur, excuse me, according to Lloyd Bower and Vopel, leader member exchange was defined as effective leadership processes occur when leaders and followers are able to develop mature leadership relationships and thus gain access to many benefits these relationships bring. So these relationships also contain 3 stages: role taking, role making, and routinization. Michael Scott, he doesn't gain any of these relationships, and he doesn't gain any of these 3 stages, and he constantly brings the people around him down. And this is what ultimately makes him unapproachable and makes this whole situation, relevant to the episode. And then lastly, I want to talk to you guys about how some of these fixes are, they're simple, but they can completely, fix the problems that we talked about relative to this class, like the anticipatory socialization. All I would have done is make the presentation more neutral, more open, more, just more diverse. It's something easy, just more polite, really. The interview process, I would just try to maintain a low stress interview, especially an informal one with Oscar. I wouldn't be asking him that pushy of questions. Just when you're going to talk to people in the workplace, just make sure it's, very, diverse. And, obviously if they're, of other different culture view, you should respect that. And then last, the leader member exchange. And this is easy. Just overall, just try to be more approachable and be able to gain relationships with individuals in the workplace, because that's ultimately what's important and going to help you find success. But if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. That was ultimately my case analysis. Sorry for the recording. I know it's not full screen and I have my mouse in here, but this screen cast was really hard to figure out. So this is why it's like that. But I appreciate you guys listening to my case presentation, and I'll see you guys next time.